Oh, my beautiful, beautiful lone wolf. Are you ready to speak soul to soul? Are you ready to have that conversation of your shadow side, of the trauma, of the fear, of the obsession? This is what this video is going to be about. This is Pluto in the first house. If you have Pluto in the first house in your natal chart, which means you were born with Pluto in the first house, this is probably you. You have one of the hardest missions if you choose to do this. You have one of the hardest missions because this is about death and transformation of your identity. And this has to not just do with this life, probably as a child, and hopefully what I'm going to speak about, you've gotten through some of this stuff. But it has to do with your other lives. It has to do with what's happened to you before. I didn't say this before, and before I forget, this is the reason that I do the things that I do for hypnosis. Because I'm going to give you some clues, and I'm going to give you some things that are going to really resonate with you about past lives, about your childhood. But if you want to really understand or know and want to delve deeper into that, like you want the details, this is why I do hypnosis. You'll have to come see me for that. But I'm going to do my best to show you. I'm going to do my best to explain, right? So, this is pretty deep because this was one of the hardest ones. You have like the impossible, it's like the impossible thing to do is having to lose part of your identity to gain another part, to reinvent, it's not even reinvent, it's just coming into terms with how you want to be for the rest of time, right? So, you're the lone wolf because life has not been easy for you. It wasn't before. It hasn't been easy for you. And hopefully you've gone through some of the stuff where it's gotten a little bit easier, but it's probably gotten easier for you because you learned how to be hyper vigilant, hyper aware, you're very psychic. You're very psychic. You're very intuitive. I would even call it more intuition. Like you can smell bullshit a mile away. You just know before they even walk up to you how it's going to be. You just do. And I'll go through that. Life has not been kind to you. You have had to deal with some horrible things. And I mean, when I was channeling, the fear that I felt, the horrors that you had to go through, the volatile situations and for you it's extremes. It's like extreme one end to the other, right? And so you had such terrors and uh emotions were extreme, maybe still are extreme. Situations were extreme. The violence for some of you was extreme. The yeah, the volatility, the emotional extremes, the situations that you were put into, the situations that you had around you, uh, I, just the fear that I felt, and it's kind of coming back now, just the fear and the paranoia because there wasn't anybody there. I mean, even if there was somebody there, they weren't, how do I say this? You experienced abandonment and betrayal and loss in others, right? And you, as a child, I'm going to tell you how this kind of plays out. As a child, you probably experienced this, but you experienced this in other lives too. And you were left alone a lot. And so, e- even if there was somebody that you had to rely on, they were less than, they were inept. They didn't have the qualifications for it or have the know-how for it. So you were left to your devices, and sometimes you had to, like, you had no choice but to rely on them, especially when you were a child, and they were inept. They weren't capable of doing it. You had to, like, trust people that you had to, like, rely on people you don't trust. You had to rely on people that were not as smart, not as intuitive, not as aware, and that put you in a very horrible situation, because some of these were life-threatening situations for some of you. But again, this was either in your childhood, or this was, if it doesn't resonate for your childhood, it's going back to your past lives. And the reason I say this is because from my understanding of doing all that I do, of being a medium and being a psychic and delving into past lives with people in their hypnosis, um, I feel like, and I've seen where you bring that sort of energy in with you as a child, right? So, like the first half of your life, not even the first half, the first quarter of your life, somewhere between, 10, 12, 14, somewhere through there, from zero to that, you'll experience a lot. The situations from your past lives will be in that childhood. So some of you they won't, but a lot of you they will. And this left you having all of that, having those extreme situations, having that fear of just not knowing what to do, not being able, and you knew it too, like you knew it, like you're so psychic, you're intuitive, and you knew these situations were, even as a child, like you may not have known what they were, but you knew they were bad, or you knew they weren't good for you, and you knew that they were life threatening, right? Like you just knew. You're very intuitive. And you did this alone. You did this alone. You didn't have anybody. You were left alone. You had to figure life out completely. As a child or in your past lives, you were abandoned a lot of times, even in the past lives. You were abandoned. You trusted people and were betrayed. Um, yeah, like I'm feeling that now. I'm trying to like stay focused. And that means no support from anybody. You learned how to do this alone. And this made you hyper vigilant. This made you an investigator. This made you not trust people. But that doesn't mean you're not willing to give to people. You just don't trust. Because life has shown you over and over. You've been abandoned, you know. Um, yeah, they were totally inept and incapable of helping you. And that's how you've become the warrior. You are a warrior. There's something inside of you that knows you have a bigger purpose, that knows you have a bigger mission. Um, yeah. And again, this is the part where like I could feel y'all and I could like see all these things play out. Like when you had to rely on somebody, just the fear, and you just knew they were inept, or they were less intelligent, or they were less capable, or they were less trustworthy, And because that you've had to be the lone wolf. But there's something deep inside you that knows that you don't want to be alone, because in other lives where you've been working on this Pluto, you understood, you understand, and then this life you don't want to do this alone anymore. You don't want to be alone anymore. Yet, I mean, that's the conundrum. You don't want to be alone. You crave someone else, someone to be in the depths with you. You crave for that person to be trustworthy. You crave that. Like, that's possible, but you don't see how it's possible because humanity, people around you, family, people you thought you could trust have all failed. They've all failed you, you know? Yeah. And because of this, when somebody is in your circle, you'll die for them. You'll do whatever it takes. That's who you are. You are the warrior. But again, you have this impossible purpose that's going to take a lot of courage. That's going to take a lot of truth for yourself, you know. And you've done this for lifetimes. You've been doing this for lifetimes. And now this life you've sort of realized I don't want to do this alone. I crave somebody else. I know there's a place where two can be in a space and feel safe and feel comfortable and feel like I'm not walking this earth by myself. That's the lone wolf. That to me is the lone wolf. They want a pack. They're looking for their pack, but they still need their identity. They still need their self, right? And so this is part of what you're going through, have been going through. And for those who are transiting first house, this is what you're going to be going through. This is going to be highlighted, these fears. The fear is I must give up my identity to be able to merge with another, right? But that's a fear. That's what, because that's what lives have shown you. So that's a fear. But deep, if you look deep, if you search deep, if you look at the truth, you just know that you have this desire, kind of overwhelming desire to merge with somebody else, and you just know that that's possible. Yet, life has done nothing but shown you that it's not, right? And that's the purpose. That's the impossible purpose is to death. That's Pluto, the death and the rebirth of a death of what I once knew to be myself into this form of I can have my anonymity, can have myself, and not have to lose any of that to be with another, right? That's the whole thing. Let me make sure I wrote all this down because I knew I was going to be channeling too. So in here's the other thing. The reason this is so important for you is because if your Pluto is in your first house, you kind of know you have this bigger purpose, this bigger mission, if you will. You kind of know, and usually first house Plutonians do have a bigger mission, um, like out in the world, right? You have this bigger thing that's bigger than you that you must accomplish. And you've been trying this for lifetimes that you must accomplish. And in other lives, this is where the wound is. This is where the subconscious fuckery is. Sorry, but that's like the only way I know to explain it. It's like it's just some bullshit that you've been through and it kind of on my side it pisses me off, that nobody was there for you and nobody could do it. Nobody could help you, you know. But you have this thing that you know, and what you've done is you sacrificed. You have sacrificed in many lives where you. This is where your past life comes in. You couldn't accomplish your mission because whoever was around you, whether that was a spouse, whether that was a family member, whether that was a good friend, whether that was a cause, whatever this was, you couldn't accomplish it because your mission, your identity, what you needed to set out to do, you couldn't accomplish that because you had to stay with them, with that, with you couldn't leave that. You couldn't because you knew they depended on you so much that they were incapable. They were inept. You knew they wouldn't make it. You knew they wouldn't. So you chose to stay. You chose to help them. You chose to forego your mission, your purpose in life, so that they would be okay, so that they would be safe, right? That's that's the other thing you're trying to like, you just know that you have something bigger to do. And you may be in that situation right now if you haven't healed this Pluto. And you've been doing this in other lives where you just know that I've got to get to that, but I can't leave them. I can't leave this. I can't do it. Right? That's for some of you with Pluto if you haven't healed any of your Pluto. Right? And you knew they wouldn't survive. You may be in that situation now. I hope you're not. I hope you're not in that situation now. But you just kind of know they're not going to survive if they don't have the wits about them. They don't have the strength. They don't have the power. They don't have the know-how, and you do. You do because you've become hyper vigilant. You've become hyper aware. You are so intuitive and so psychic that you know I'm not going into that situation. And if we do go into that situation, I'm powerful enough to like get us out, right? This is the thing. So you'll feel like you have this block. You'll feel like you just can't get to your mission. You just can't get to your purpose, your bigger purpose, right? And the thing is in the background part of it, and you're thinking it's in the background, but it's actually the thing is that you need to merge with another to do this, right? And I know you feel that others aren't the reason that you can find your destiny. I know you feel like others need you so much, so almost too much, and you can't be what you need to be because of this. Because of this. But you must, here's the thing, you must become who you were born to be. You must become that. You've been dealing with this for lifetimes. It's time to like work through this Pluto. It's time to get to your wound. It's time to almost let the universe show you the other side of people, the other side of people around you, the other side of your friendships, the other side of your relationships, the other side of family, or who you will become family with if you haven't already. You must live your own destiny. You must. It's this thorn that's been festering for lifetimes. And you must do it. Like I know you could feel it. I know you can feel like you have to do it. That's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. So, because of all of this, because you've been through so much, you have this powerful presence. When Pluto's in the first house for somebody in their natal chart, they've got this powerful presence, very intense. And as I'm saying this, some of you are going to be like, no, I don't. Because you don't see it. You don't see how other people see you. You don't see it. That's part of your block, right? But um, you'll have this way about you. You're really intense. You're really psychic. You're really truthful, right? And you'll have this presence about you that's really intimidating, right? But you won't see it. And if you do, good for you. You're working through that Pluto. But you may not see it. You may think, and it's like, I get this a lot too, where, I think I'm saying it kindly or nicely, but it's coming out a whole different way. It's coming out because they're scared. They're scared. They're afraid. They're too intimidating. You're too much. You're too intense, right? So you'll have that presence where you think it's like you're just kind of going through, you have a mask on. Now so here's the thing, you have a mask on. You had to. You've always had to. You had to because you don't want people knowing what really, really happened. You have some shame and some guilt, right? Hopefully you've worked through that, but if not, again, I'm going to do my best to help you work through this, but I have other tools like hypnosis. That really helps. That's why I do it because we can take lifetimes and help you understand. Like I can see it, but if you can see it and you work through it, it's a faster way to me. It's just a deeper, faster way to me. But getting back to this, like, sorry, my mic went out. You've had to um, you've had to like wear this mask, but it's almost like you don't feel like it's a mask. It's just the part of you that you want everybody else to see, but they're actually seeing something else. But it's because you have maybe some guilt and some shame and some stuff about what's happened, how you see the world, why you can't trust people, how people have abandoned you and let you down, all of that. But here's the trauma. The trauma is that you feel trapped. You feel trapped, you feel blocked, you feel like you can't. And you feel this because of your relationships. So you feel trapped by your relationships, whether that's parents, family, a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friendship, or whatever. Whatever this is, you feel trapped by this. You feel stuck. Your trauma is like I want my independence, but I know I want another, right? And that's your trap. Yeah. But it's like you're stuck and you have this wall because they've all shown you. Everybody that like maybe not everybody, but most people, especially in your childhood and in other lives, have shown you that you can't be trusted. They can't be trusted. Uh you feel betrayed, you feel used, you may not feel that now. Let's hope you don't. But you felt betrayed and you felt uh you felt like you couldn't trust others. You felt like they weren't strong enough, they weren't aware enough, they weren't smart enough, mostly smart enough. They weren't intuitive enough, they weren't enough. They weren't enough. And they let you down. They really let you down. And these are extreme situations. I'm not talking about, oh, well, they just didn't go with me to blah, blah, blah. No, I'm talking about extreme situations, extreme emotional situations, extreme physical situations, extreme volatile, sometimes violence, where you needed to be on your freaking game, whoever you were trusting, and they didn't. They weren't. They weren't on their game. So here's the thing. You know from other lives because this is why you're so astute. This is why you're so aware. This is why you're so on top of your game. This is why you're so intense. This is why you're so I mean, this is why because you've mastered that part in other lives, right? You've had to be that way, so you know to be that way, right? That's part of your identity. But you also know that through all that, and why can't I trust others? Why do they always let me down? Why is there all this pain? Why? Like, there's a fear there. There's a fear there. And through all the lives that you've been dealing with this, You came into this one and you're at that place where you realize you're all alone and you're lonely. You're alone and you don't want to be. You know you don't have to do this alone. There's something inside of you that knows. Like you had to do it before in other lifetimes, but there's something inside of you that's saying, I don't want to be alone. I have mastered the craft of being astute and aware and safe uh, in my own self. Like you know your your problem is not knowing your true identity, right? Like my house is the seventh house. I mean, my Pluto's in the seventh house in my natal chart. So that's different. That's like who am I? Because I've always been what others wanted me to be, right? Yours is I know my true self, right? I know my true self. But when Pluto's there in your identity house, it's about transforming into a different identity, and that's the pull you're having. You're like, I know myself. I know what I can do. I know who I am, but I don't want to do it alone. I don't want to be lonely. This is a lonely place. This is lonely at the top where I've mastered everything, right? But that's your growth. That's where you're going to grow. That's why I say you have the hardest purpose is to evolve your identity. I don't even want to say, I mean, with Pluto, it's a let go, it's a death of one part and transforming into a new part. But it's just the death in that you're going to merge into something else. Does that make sense? Like Pluto's about the death and transformation and losing part of you. And that's what your fear is, that you're going to lose part of you. But what you don't understand is that you are not going to lose any part of you. You are going to incorporate that into a new way of being who you are, who you've always been. It's like almost moving closer to your whole identity. See, you think you know your whole identity. You don't. You don't. It's impossible to know it here. Our whole identity is part of us that's not even in this realm. I mean, it can merge in this realm, and it did through our body, but it's not in this realm. So you only know the parts of every life that you've lived. Does that make sense? So you'll go through this death of your identity and transform into getting this new identity, but you cannot. Here's the thing. You cannot do it alone. That is not who your new identity is. It is not doing it alone. You've already done that. You already mastered that. It is doing it with partnership, with others, with another, even if it's one. That's your new identity. That's what you're going to try to be getting to. So your growth is to learn partnership without losing you. And for you, that seems impossible. For a lot of people, that would seem impossible, but you have lived it. So it seems impossible. But you have to learn. It's not like you haven't tried, but you have to learn how to do this partnership and this relationship without the abuse, without the abandonment, without the um, trust issues. You have to learn how to do that. And you have to have a partner that is willing to do that with you, right? So you have to face that fear one more time. You have to face that fear of losing yourself because you think you know because you are very intuitive and you are an old soul and you have been through a lot. So you think you know that merging with another would cause you to lose the identity, but it doesn't. It means both of you can have uh, your identity, their identity, and then have a identity together. I don't know if that makes any sense. Now you will use, I'll say this, because of all the stuff that you've been through, you will use power plays. Like, it makes you, it's like I was talking about in the other video, like Uranus will go and drop bombs, Aquarius will go drop bombs just to see shit fuck up so that people can move in different directions. But they do it because they need you to move forward. You do it because it's a power play. That's where you found your power. You found your power in being smarter and being quicker and being more aware and being um, seeing the truth of everything. Even when people wouldn't see the truth, you can see it a mile away. Like even before it happens, you can see it. But you can use that, some of you, not all of you, hopefully you've grown through this, you can use that as a power play. You can use that to your benefit, to manipulate, to maybe manipulation is kind of a strong word, but to like one step ahead of people to get what you want kind of thing. But that makes you feel safe when you have the power, right? And what you need to understand, or what you're going to understand over this transit of your life, and then those who are transiting over this placement of your life, and then when people have this first house transit, which is Aquarius, is that you can be powerful but without having the power plays. Your present already is commanding. Your presence is already commanding. Your presence is already intense. You just don't see it. You'll just have to see it, right? So the way to work through this Pluto, the way to work through this trauma is you're going to first get really truthful with yourself and then take the risk, take the chance. Yeah, and you're gonna have to do this. How do I get this out? You're going to have to find a partner or be in a relationship, whether that's a partnership relationship, love relationship, friendship, family, whatever. You could start small and do it with like a friend, but this is more about you getting to that deep, deep, intimate space with another. So you have to have this partnership with another where you divulge these things from your past, where you divulge your fear, where you become like you're willing to let everything out in a safe space with another person and have them help you with your guilt, with your fear, with your shame, with your obsessions about things, with your quirkiness about things, with the way that you see things and why you see things the way that you see things, and them be, I won't say non judgmental, but them being very loving and open and understanding because there'll be rage in there, there'll be fear in there, there'll be obsession in there, there'll be taboo things in there. All right, there'll be guilt, there'll be shame. And to do that with another is such a blessing. It is a blessing. I've done it. It's a blessing. I don't know that I'll do it again. I was very lucky. Very lucky. I know I was blessed. But I'm saying this so that you understand that there are people like this out there. I know it doesn't look like it right now, but there are people like this. There is a partner for you. There is a relationship for you. Otherwise, your inside, deep, deep, deep inside would not crave it. It's craving it because it's time. It's desiring it because it's time. It's time for you to not be alone. It's time for you to heal this part. It's just Pluto making you fear that there is nobody out there, that there is no way people will understand, that there is no way. That's just Pluto bringing up the fear because he wants you to know what real power is. Not this power that you had to like figure it the fuck out by yourself because there was no other way. This is power. This is like the difference between an alpha male and a sigmoid male. I don't even know what the other term is, but you guys know what I mean. Like a real alpha male doesn't have to show you he's an alpha male. He just is. That's what you're going to come to in your relationship, where it just is all those things that you've desired to be with someone else. All those things that you've desired to be with someone else, to be vulnerable, to be intimate, to share the smallest things and not be judged and not be abandoned and not be feared, and to share the biggest things and not be judged and not be abandoned and not be feared. Yeah, yeah. So I hope this helps. Again, the fastest way I know, the deepest way I know, is to do hypnosis. So that may be something you want to consider. But the first steps, the steps to get out of this is to merge. You're right in wanting to merge with another, and you're right in knowing that there is another to be able to merge with. You just have to take the risk. You got to get over that fear. You got to come to terms with your guilt and your shame and your obsessions and your quirkiness because you have a mission. You have a purpose. You have this bigger thing. And that blockage, that thing that you can't get to is going to be festering until you deal with merging, having a partner, understanding true intimacy, understanding true safe space, understanding trusting another. That that that's the way out. So let's talk about the transit. So that's Pluto in your natal chart. That's Pluto if you were born with Pluto in your first house. Okay. Now we're going to talk about for those people that weren't born with Pluto in the first house, but it's transiting in your first house. So it's Aquarius ascending, right? But it's not every Aquarius ascending because, like me, I'm Aquarius ascending, but I have it's transiting my 12th house, and then in like 2038, 2040 is going to be transiting my first house, right? So if it's not transiting your first house yet, it's going to be transiting your first house, Aquarian, okay? Because that's where Pluto's at. It just started in Aquarius, okay? I hope that makes sense. So if you're an Aquarius ascending, then it is transiting in your first house. Um, for a lot of you. But for some of you, if you're like me and your Aquarius is at 25 degrees or 29 degrees or 15 degrees, so anything before, I would say like 11 degrees. Yeah. Eventually it's going to transit your first house, but it is transiting your 12th house right now. And that's kind of why I wanted to do the first and the 12th house together because they kind of go together. Okay. It's different things, but they go together. They kind of merge. Again, my belief system, my understanding, the way I was taught, the way that I see science, the way that it comes to play, energy does not stop and start. It kind of flows and then it merges. And then there's a frequency where both energies are at, right? Because it's transmuting, it's transforming, right? So, let's talk about it transiting the first house for Aquarius. Okay, that's why I said before, if you saw my other videos here and there, I've been sort of alluding to this, that Aquarians are going to have an identity crisis. Because a lot of this stuff, what we think we know, we don't know yet, right? Or we don't remember yet. But we were born in this time to have Pluto transit our first house for a reason. We knew Pluto was going to be transiting our first house. I knew Pluto was going to be transiting my 12th house, right? So I needed to grow with that. What is Pluto? He's transformation. He brings up your fears. He will pull your shadow side and be like, look at it. This is who you are. This is what you do. These are the fears you have. This is the guilt. This is the shame. This is the fear. This is the obsession. He will bring all of that out. And right now, he's about to go into your first house, or he's already going into your first house, and he is going to highlight all of that. Now, if you have planets in that first house, as he gets closer to the planet, so now I'm talking about two different charts. I'm trying to help you understand. Pluto, these are for people that they were not born with Pluto in their first house. This is the transit. Pluto is now in your first house, which is Aquarius and Cindi, right? But if you have Venus or Mars or any of the planets, if you have them in your first house, as Pluto gets closer to that planet of your first house, in your first house, because it's transiting, it will get closer to the point of where you have a planet in your first house. It is going to highlight that. It is going to intensify that. That's Pluto, intensity. It is going to bring it out. And it is what does Pluto bring out? Your fears. So something like if your Venus was in your first house, Aquarius, and then let's just say Venus is at 1 degree of your first house, right? And Pluto just moved into 0 degrees of Aquarius in your first house. That means it is already highlighting. It started at about 3 degrees ago in Capricorn, but it's already highlighting fears, obsessions, um, traumas that you have around Venus, around self-worth, around beauty, around love, around money. It's going to highlight that. It's going to make it bigger. It's not bigger, that's Jupiter. It's going to intensify it. It's going to bring that stuff out. That's why it's important to know if you have a planet in your first house. But if you don't have a planet in your first house, doesn't mean it ain't going to mess with you. It's going to mess with you. I told you. Pluto's going to do what Pluto does. It is up to you to decide whether you want to deal with your Pluto in this lifetime or not. But from the information I'm gathering and have been channeling, we are finally going to be able to release this Pluto that has taken us lifetimes to release it. So that's my understanding, is that especially for Pluto transiting, us souls that knew Pluto was going to transit at that particular spot or those particular spots, we are ready to release that stuff. We are ready to get to the ending of that stuff. We've already had lots of lifetimes where we've been dealing with it, and this is like the final straw, the closing out, the finishing up. But it's Pluto, so it's going to bring fear around all of that stuff. If it's Mars, it's a different thing. If it's Jupiter, it's a different thing. It depends on if you have something in there. If it's not, then it's the closing out of you understanding your identity and how you're wanting to incorporate this new identity. So it is going to challenge your identity. And for Aquarians, I can see, let's just say you didn't have any planets in that house, but Pluto's now transiting into that house. It's going, as an Aquarius, you have to learn to be you and show that to the world because you have a mission, because you have a bigger purpose, because the world needs your energy. It needs your know-how. It needs your leadership. And Aquarians, we can be leaders. We don't really, that's not the thing for us. We just need a cause, right? And so it's going to show you that. It's going to show you that as a transit. So you're going to have this huge transformation of your identity over the next 20 years. Huge transformation. Uh, your awareness, of your belief systems, of your understanding of what you thought you knew, but now you're kind of understanding it differently, of the way that you used to believe, but now maybe you believe something differently, of death and loss. Uh, so you're already intuitive, whether you're an Aquarius that believes in psychic abilities or whatever. That's a different story. But you're already intuitive. But when Pluto transit this first house, you will be really psychic. You'll be really intuitive and really psychic. And you'll begin to, especially if you have it in your 12th house for right now, and then it's going to move into your first house. I hope I'm making sense. That is going to cause you to have a lot of dreams that you probably should pay attention to, because your psychicness can come a lot through your dreams, but you'll just have this knowing too. You'll just start you'll get really psychic when Pluto transits the first house. Okay? So there could be some tragedies. There could be some catastrophes. There could be some devastation. There could be, and I'm sorry to go so negative, but this is Pluto. He is going to bring this shit up. He is not playing. If you know me and you've seen me, you know I do not mess with Pluto. He is heavy in my chart. He has been talking on my planets all my life, and I don't mess with him. Like, if you got something to show me, I already know. If it's a fear, I'm gonna do that. If it's an obsession, I'm gonna stop and take a look at it. If it's a guilt, I'm gonna go into that and look. I don't really have that much guilt. I really don't have that much guilt. But like if something happens that just blows up my world, I already know. Whatever the fear is, I'm going that way. I've just learned. I've learned with Pluto. I don't ignore it. I go towards it. And it is fear. So it trusts me. It's fear. Like the things that I fear, it's just like you. The things that you fear, it will bring that out. It will make your life, make the world around you pop that fear out where you're like, fuck that. I don't really want to do that, but I got to do that. Like, I got to do it. That's how I deal with Pluto. It's probably what you should be doing with Pluto. So, there's going to be these things coming about to help you deal with your fear and obsession and your trauma, your past wounds about who you are and what you are incorporating into more of who you are. So a lot of Aquarians they love who they are, but they don't really want to show that to the world because they think it's too much for the world, or the world's just not going to understand it, right? But maybe in your first house, you're going to see how you can be much more free. That's Uranus. There's freedom in who you are and coming to terms with who you really are. Not the who you are that you show people, but the who you really are. Like I said in the other video, like sometimes we don't say it because we don't hurt people's feelings, or they're not going to understand, or it's too forward thinking, but this is the time where you're going to see that if that's a fear of yours, Pluto's going to bring that out. He's going to bring up situations in your life to make that come out. So just be aware. So there could be power struggles. There could be a lot of power struggles actually. When Pluto transits the first house, there's power struggles. Are you powerful, or are you going to give your power over? Like, some Aquarians have made it in their mind, and I'm not saying all Aquarians, I'm just saying I've seen some Aquarians deal with it this way. I'm just not even going to look at it. Let them do what they're going to do. When you know that you should be doing something about it, because that's your power, right? But you're giving your power over to somebody. But you don't see it that way. You see it as, I'm just not, they're going to do what they're going to do. But that's not true when Pluto transit your first house. You have to be honest and true, and not be fearful of who you are. You have to take your power back. Some of you have given your power away, and then you've talked yourself into, because you think a lot, into, well, I didn't really give it away. I just didn't care what they did. That's a bunch of bullshit. Sorry, but that is a bunch of bullshit. So, there'll be some power plays going on. You could find yourself in situations where your power is trying to be taken away, and you're going to have to stand up. You're going to have. This is what I was saying in somewhat sort of way in the last video where I was like, I need y'all to step it up. I need y'all to step it up. I need you to come out. I need you to like show yourselves. I need y'all to stop. You're not hiding, but you kind of are in society where you're just like, yeah, you're going to need to step it up. This is what I mean by that. Because, how do I say this? If you are in a power play, if you find yourself where somebody's trying to take your power away when Pluto is in your first house, transiting your first house, if you find yourself this way, it's Pluto's bringing out the situations where you find yourself like, they're trying to take my power, right? If you don't take your power, it can be taken completely. And you'll find yourself in some bad situations. And again, I know this is not like my normal content because I'm always looking optimistic, but I've channeled this stuff. I'm in a very different space for this video series. Okay? So for a lot of you, you may not have heard this part of me. Let's see. Here's a very big thing. The cheerfulness, the optimism, the hopefulness, the cheerful attitude, that is going to have to come from within. If your Pluto is transiting the first house, if Pluto is transiting your first house, all of that is going to have to come from within. You're going to have to find joy in within, and optimism within, and cheerfulness within. And that's because Pluto's not going to let you see that because he's trying to help you have faith and come from within. I don't know if I said that right. So you here's a good way to say it because Aquarius likes to think of things as the universe is testing me or they're testing me or I test them. You like to do tests, right? I know. I'm testing this or they're testing me or the universe is testing me or I didn't do it that way because of that. So, right? Well, look at it this way. When Pluto comes in this first house, you're going to be tested about your true self and where that joy is and where that optimism comes from and where that cheerfulness comes from. You're going to have faith. You're going to have faith in you. It's going to have to come from within. So you're not going to see a lot of it outside. You're not going to see a lot of hand holding for you. Not that you ever did, but you're not going to see a lot of like uh people that are like okay with your cause. You know, they may be okay, but they're not going to be cheerful about it. You got to that passion has to come from within because you're going to be tested on your true identity. You're going to be tested on your true self. You're going to be tested on how to have faith in you. Does that make sense? Yeah. And you're going to want to give up. You're going to want to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Fuck that. Whatever. I don't care. You're going to be tested that way. Just know that that could happen for you. Is that going to happen for everybody? Maybe some variances for Aquarius, but that depends. Like, do you have a planet there? Do you have which planet do you have there, right? But all that's going to be tested. Because why? Because it's time to prove because you're about testing. So it's time to prove to yourself, not to the universe, not to everybody else, but it's time to prove to yourself how strong you are. even if you don't see it or feel it. How much faith you can have in yourself, even if you don't see it or feel it. Now, here's a warning. When Pluto transits the first house, because you have all this stuff going on, because people aren't going to really understand, because they already don't understand us. They already don't understand you, Aquarius, right? But they're really not going to understand if Pluto's transiting your first house. Like Aquarius Sun is a different one, but Aquarius Ascending, Pluto's transiting your first house. So you're going to have all this identity crisis, right? Like I said, an identity crisis. And what that can cause is you to get bouts of depression. So, if you feel yourself getting bouts of depression, you need to reach out. You need to get some help, okay? This doesn't have to be deep depression, but depression is a thing to like do lightly, right? So, just honor yourself. Have faith in yourself. You can do this. I know you can. You're Aquarius. I'm Aquarius. You can do it. You're just not going to like it right now. You're just not going to like it. And the thing is when we don't like something or we can't figure it out, what do? We run. We get away from the situation. We say, I don't want to deal with that, right? Because you can't fix it, right? So that's the hardest thing that you're going to have to do, Aquarius, is not detach. You are going to have to incorporate more of you instead of detach. You need to not detach. You've already detached. In 2019, 2020, in 2018, you already started to detach. 2021, some of y'all were like, fuck that, and left, right? You're like, I'm not doing it. Fuck society. Oh, I'm not dealing with that. You are now coming back to you. And it took about 2 years for you to heal from this, right? For you to like make the choice to like, okay, maybe they're not so bad. They're still bad, but maybe they're not so bad. Okay, I still love humanity. Okay, I'm still willing to work a purpose. Okay, like so, but now you're gonna have these challenges again for Aquarius ascending. Okay, not Moon and Sun, but Aquarius ascending. That's your first house that it's going to be transiting. So you're going to like want to detach. You need to not detach. These last 4 years should have shown you how to attach back and detach. How to detach and attach. Your first inclination used to be to detach immediately. You've gotten better at not detaching. You've now attached. This is going to be the hardest thing for you is not to detach. I need you to attach and incorporate more. Okay? You can do this. And I know you need to find the cause, and I know you need to have the purpose, and the purpose is, and the cause is, you were born here because you do have a bigger mission, because you do have a bigger purpose, because your energy is really big and really smart, really intelligent, really intuitive, and really all of that, right? And how are you supposed to incorporate those things into your DNA? Let's talk about science, into your DNA for your lineage to go forward. So the ones that are born after you, if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to, your genes are not going to have that program into play in the future. That makes sense? Okay? So your cause is to help yourself understand you, to have faith in you, because then those people around you will come about that you can help them understand. Does that make sense? So, I hope this helps. I'll be doing house number 12 next. And you first housers, you Aquarius ascending, want to look at that video too because it's a connection. There's a connection there. All right? Please be sure to subscribe, to like, to share this video, and I will see you soon. Bye.